Harry's wife. How will aging affect her? This was another question that was posed by my viewership, wondering how the issue of aging would affect her. The short answer is there is no one-size-fits-all answer to this question, because it's dependent upon the type of subschool and cadre that the narcissist is. If you'd like to understand more about the issue of the aging narcissist, I'd invite you to watch Aging Narcissist, Lower Lesser Victim and Middle Lesser Victim. That will tell you more about that particular type of subschool, both lower lesser and middle lesser combined with victim. It will enable you to understand more in terms of how that particular narcissist, those two subschools, regard aging. The fact is that with the aging narcissist, the issue of age is one whereby delusion plays a huge part, actuality plays a huge part. For instance, in broad brush terms, greater narcissists, thinking ahead and planning, look after themselves physically, have access to excellent health care, and even though they might not be able to run around in the way that they once did, access to wealth, networks, power, charisma, a sharp-witted mind, undulled by age, still enables the application of manipulation to assert control, nullify threats to control, draw fuel, etc. And therefore, the greater narcissist and the ultra have nothing to be concerned about with regard to the advancing of age. Other narcissists, typically found more within lesser, don't have an issue with regard to age because of the level of delusion that they operate by. That notwithstanding the fact that they've lost some teeth and that this particular narcissist has a paunch and a balding pate, he still thinks that he's the gorgeous hunk he once was in his 20s. And powered by that level of delusion, he still runs around in the bars chasing the 20-year-old women. And by a percentage game and sheer force of will, he eventually meets with some success. It might be that he has access to money, which enables that glossing over of his lack of looks. It can be, of course, that certain narcissists as lessers still do look after themselves in the way that a greater does, and therefore it affords them success. But generally speaking, we're talking broad brush terms with the lessers, they tend to be deluded and invariably come up short as a consequence of the issue of aging, that they've basically let themselves go, they haven't got very good health, they look older than they are, they've lost their looks, etc. And whilst that may not stop them in their deluded attempts to assert control, draw fuel, etc., it certainly hampers them. Mid-range narcissists invariably face the issue of recognizing the advancement of age, and they're less deluded, and they fight against it harder. You'll have seen, of course, with Harry's wife already, that she fights against her age. There is the suggestion that she's actually older than the 41 that she claims to be. That act in itself, the allegation that she lies about her age, is a form of a nullification of a threat to control. Her real age threatens her sense of control, and thus she allegedly lies about it. We've also seen, of course, the fact that she has engaged in the application of plastic surgery, hair straightening, Botox, fillers, etc. The scope and extent of them is open to debate, but it is quite obvious if one compares a photograph of her from a number of years ago compared to now that she's had some work done. And of course she's perfectly entitled to do that, and whether she discloses whether she's had work done or not is a matter for her. However, that does accord with the vanity of the narcissist. Now remember, non-narcissists also engage in undertaking plastic surgery in order to stay younger, because that is part of the narcissistic trait of vanity. But a narcissist engages in it to a greater extent because of the strength of that trait of vanity and also of pride, but also, of course, age as a threat to control. We are all, at some juncture, going to shuffle off this mortal coil. The meat suits that we inhabit are going to let us down. I recognise that, and even though I remain in excellent shape, both in mind and body, that I eat sensibly and exercise, etc., the fact is that at some point my mortal form will let me down and I'll die. It's decades away at the moment, but nevertheless, I know that it will happen. And that's why I have created this legacy of this work, so that it'll live on beyond my death. And it doesn't matter that it lives on through a pseudonym. The fact is that when death comes along with his adamantine scythe and says, well, this is it, you're on your way out, I'll say, do your worst, Mr. Death. I know that a form of me is going to live on through my work, and thus I've nullified the threat to control that is death. For Harry's wife, much is placed within her lux, and that is in accordance with her cadre. It won't come as a huge surprise to you that her relevant cadre is that of somatic narcissist. She does have some strong victim traits there, but ultimately, because when it comes to cadre, I don't do it as a mixture, but rather as a single cadre. She's clearly not elite. She doesn't have enough cerebral. She's not cerebral, we can see that. Although she thinks she's clever, she's not. And as she does have significant victim traits, but her somatic ones are greater. She's very much about the material. Money's hugely important to her, as is for Sean, the properties that she lives in, the places that she dines at, the places that she travels to, her lux. We know that she's used plenty of spicy poontang in order to control not only Prince Harry, but those that came before him, both literally and figuratively. And therefore she's very much a somatic narcissist. And therefore the issue of age is a particular concern to her. The loss of her lux as a consequence of aging is a threat to control, and therefore she will fight against it. And she will do so as a consequence of having procedures, using potions and lotions, in order to keep herself young. Not only that, as I've explained in parts passim, why does she target young people? Her narcissism also causes her to believe that those are her natural environment and habitat, and that, in essence, by paying to look younger, but also being around those that younger, means she will stay younger. And therefore the ravages of age and the advancement of the years will somehow be lessened as a consequence of the twin approach of physical alteration and hanging around with those that are younger. Age is a problem for her. It is a threat to control. And with each wrinkle that appears, that will necessitate another injection of Botox, some kind of perhaps facelift, maybe some additional exfoliation to tackle it. Where bits of the body are sagging, then it'll be necessary through the application of diet and potentially further plastic surgery to fight against it. Dressing younger than her years, needing the compliments about her looks and how youthful she is. Repeated references to her and Harry being like children in order to maintain that longevity of youth that the delusion of her narcissism propounds. But simply this: aging will affect her in terms of being a threat to control, and because of her narcissism, it will cause her to fight against it as much as she can, notwithstanding how obvious it is, in order to prevent that aging and thus nullify the threat to control. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.